Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are doing my final prediction for the 2022 Senate elections and the 2022 governor elections. So this is pretty big. I don't know how long this video is going to take. Also, please note that in a couple of days I am going to be uploading, I believe, my 2022 House election night, so you better stay tuned for that one. It's probably going to be an hour-long video that will make my voice, I'll probably lose my voice while making it, unless I don't have some water down with me, to make sure that that doesn't happen. So, needless to say, it's going to take a great toll on me, and you better watch it, because that would be rude if you didn't. So, also my Senate prediction will be coming out on the 5th of November, but that's a different story. Okay, we're going to start off with the Senate races, and we are going to first reset this map, which I forgot to do, so excuse that. We're going to get the color palette here, and then we are going to start with all the blue states, which include Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois. I know there's some Emerson College polling that shows that being closer. Same with Connecticut, I get it, but not going to happen. And Vermont, forget the Trafalgar poll. New York as well has been showing a sign of tightening recently. I don't get why. I think that's because the polls in the governor's race have been tightening significantly. Which is somehow having a down ballot effect. Schumer is not going to win by the huge margins he's won by before up until now, but he will easily win by over 10 points, probably by around 15 to 20 points. I don't know. That seems low for New York. Maybe more like 20 points. I would probably say 20 points is the ceiling. Probably like 17 to 23 if I had to guess. Seems reasonable for him, but probably not any lower than that. Enough about that. We're gonna fill in Maryland. Chris Chafee, he's got a great beard and actually, I don't think he has a beard. Let me look him up. Sorry, this is gonna be a long video, I might as well waste some time. This guy has absolutely wonderful hair. I so want this guy to win just because of the hair, but it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, Chris. Okay. Okay, so that is it for the safe blue states, I believe. We'll go to the safe red states now. I will include Idaho there, Alaska for sure. It's going to be Murkowski or Shabaka, but almost certainly Murkowski at this point. Utah, I will take a brief look at Utah. Emerson College has recent polling coming out that is showing this race being about a 10-point victory for Mike Lee. I think they're oversampling the other vote quite a bit. My gosh, that's a lot of third parties. Why? Why would there be that many third parties? Anyway, I don't think they're going to close it at poll closing. I mean, I don't think they're going to call it at poll closing, but I don't think it's going to be below 10. I know that's a change from last time, but I'm pretty sure about that. So, we'll continue with Kansas and both Oklahoma races. Look, the polling in Oklahoma sucks, okay? Let's just check. Let's see how bad their polling sucks. This is why people think Oklahoma's race is going to be semi-competitive. When it's not. Okay, Emerson College, you did it. You actually released a good poll. Look at that. 21 points. That's not unplausible if it's a good candidate. I think it's going to be greater than that. I think it's going to be like 30 points. But it's not going to be this 6-point bullcrap. Okay? Just throwing that out there. Oklahoma polling is terrible this cycle, and the governor's race is also safe. Spoiler alert. Anyway, North Dakota, South Dakota, easily red. Missouri, that is pretty red, I would say. There was one poll that came out that showed it a 9-point difference, but Emerson released polls that show a Schmidt win of about 14%, and that is a pretty good estimate, I'd say. Most polls have had 11, but I don't believe it's going to be an issue for Schmidt at all, even if Valentine is more of a conservative Dem. Iowa, I know Chuck Grassley's old age, the guy's 89 years old, yada yada yada, but he's still leading by around 11 in most of these polls. Civics, they tend to overestimate Democrats from what I've seen. They tend to be too nice to Democrats most of the time. Terrence Group, and I know these are Republican pollsters, but I mean, it's not like we can trust the Dem pollsters either. Seltzer & Co., I'm not sure I really trust this 3-point poll. So, in general, it's like 11-point leads here. Emerson College also added 11-point leads, so I would expect that as well. I think in the end, Grassley outperforms polls because he always slightly does that anyway. So it's definitely going to be way closer than otherwise just because of the guy's old age and the fact that he really should have retired, but it's not going to be an issue. Arkansas, John Boozman wins. Louisiana, John Kennedy wins without a runoff. Alabama, Katie Britt. And then, of course, Indiana and Kentucky. By the way, there were a few Indiana polls. This is my home state, and I know darn well it's not happening. There were a couple of polls that showed this race really close. It's like, come on, get some real pollsters, people. Anyway, okay. That leaves us with these remaining states. We are going to look at each one, of course, as we always do. We are going to start with Washington and go to the East Coast. Washington, RCP just changed their rating to toss-up. Now, I think that's stupid, personally. I don't know about you, I think that's stupid. I think the reason they did it is because of this Trafalgar Group poll, which, if Trafalgar is accurate, then, I mean, props to them. They totally deserve to be called a great pollster. It's definitely something to consider that we take them more seriously when they release polls like this. But, come on, nobody in their right mind actually thinks this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Murray wins by 6 at the bare minimum. While I think Smiley could get like 46% of the vote. From what I've heard, Smiley has done good in debates, and she's been a decent candidate overall. More Information Group, they tend to be overly partisan, so we will ignore the poll that shows them tied. Most of these polls, though, are showing this to being fairly close, and I would put Murray at anywhere from 6 to 9%, I believe, is going to be her margin. So we will fill that state in as likely. Wow, this is already an 8-minute video. My gosh. I'm going to have to speed up. Okay, we will go to Colorado. I'm not going to forget what I said about east to west. This has an order, and it's important. A new Colorado poll came out today from Emerson College that shows Joe O'Dea within 7 points of Michael Bennet. That seems pretty fair. I think honestly O'Dea has pulled away so much of his base. Well, not his base, but like the Trump base, that this race is only barely going to be likely. I think it's going to be John Hickenlooper margins at the end of the day. Lean D, certainly not very accurate, I would say. Likely D just seems fair. I know some people are saying solid, and I wouldn't say quite solid because Colorado isn't the most deep blue state that would like be a solid margin during a red wave year. So it's I don't see this as being a safe race, but I think it's going to only barely be likely, probably like 8 to 9%, maybe even like 9.5%. Like, again, John Hickenlooper margins. Okay, so that seems to be pretty fair. Okay, New Hampshire could have been likely, but it's not. We will get to that later. Instead, we'll fill out the Republican states that are likely. Ohio is still likely. I'm calling it. It's likely, guys. Remember polls in 2020 that said Trump's only going to win this state by like a point, and then Trump wins it by 8 points. Look at this. Vance is actually outdoing Trump in the polling aggregate right now. And let's not forget how terrible Ohio polling is. So with all things in mind, Vance is easily going to win this race by above 5. He's been surging. All the polling has been showing it. Although it's a lot of signal polls, granted. But, like, heck, even Marist College shows it. And Suffolk University shows it. Trafalgar shows it. Emerson College shows it. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just a question of how high his margin is. I'm not prepared to say how high it'll be quite yet. I think it'll be like 7, I think is a fair take. 6, 6, 7, possibly 8. Maybe it's about where Trump's was. Or possibly higher. If the polling miss holds up this to be the same exact polling miss that it was in 2020, then I would see it maybe even being safe, assuming you do that math. I'm not sure that really applies, but I'm just saying it's possible. Although unlikely because Tim Ryan is actually a good candidate. So, we will fill in Wisconsin next. Wisconsin, Mandela Barnes' polling lead at the beginning basically collapsed. Ron Johnson is leading polls. He's an overperformer of polls. I think that's a pretty strong sign. This guy's going to win by at least lean. You know what? I'm actually going to say likely. I think he wins by around 5 to 6 points. Possibly like a Scott Walker type margin. I know he's not that well liked in the state, but considering the fact Mandela Barnes is that bad of a candidate and has been unable to gain any traction and his polling lead collapsed, like, he's just a weak candidate. They hung him out to dry real bad. So I just don't see this state being that close in the end. I think it could be like 4.5. If so, I was wrong, I'll admit it, but I think it legitimately goes above 5 at this point. I know conservative people generally rate this race as likely, so it might look like I'm totally biased, and maybe I am, okay? Maybe I am, but let's not forget the polling misses, people. They are real. Okay. Florida, we should have done Florida a long time ago. Florida is so easily likely, it's laughable. Marco Rubio is leading by 7 in the aggregate. I think he's going to win by more like 9. This one poll from University of North Florida has him up 11. I think he's going to underperform DeSantis because DeSantis is beloved, basically, and Charlie Crist is a horrible candidate. Val Demings, at least, did all right, okay? Like, from what I've heard perspectives that she did okay in the debate, okay? So at least some people thought she did all right. I think in the end Marco Rubio does win this pretty easily, though. Possibly by safe margin, but we will stay on the safe side and give it to him by a likely margin. North Carolina, also likely. This state is likely because polling is being fairly favorable to Ted Budd. It's favorable to Ted Budd overall. Marist College released a poll. How about that? So it's really just not looking good for Beasley at all. She got a few poll leads right in the middle here, but since like recently, like in October, it's been basically downwards for her from there. I think these polls are underestimating Budd just a little bit. I'm looking at more like a 4.5 margin, but I'm going to say a 5 margin for the sake of argument because North Carolina polling is not necessarily the best. We know that from 2020. They don't tend to be good. So I think they could really be underestimating Budd, and I think he wins by like a Richard Burr 2016 margin. 4.5 to Richard Burr 2016 is what I would say. That leaves us with the true toss-up states. We will start with New Hampshire, since that's a very easy one to do. New Hampshire, it's getting narrower, okay, guys? I'll admit it. It's getting narrower. St. Anselm College actually released a poll with a huge sample size, by the way. 2.5 margin of error. That's all points to looking like a good poll. Taken over 2 days. And it has Bolduc actually leading. Is that possible that he wins? Yeah, but as of right now, I think Hassan is still favored by, like, maybe, like, anywhere from 2 to 4 points, I would say. Possibly below 2 points. Maybe it's like a 1-point victory. But I don't know. Emerson College had it like 3, 5 point margins. Insider Advantage has it 1 point. Coefficient, I'm not sure how reliable they are, but they have it at tie. So I think Bolduc is surging, but I'm not sure it's really going to help him a whole lot. I think it's kind of late for that. So as of right now, I'm going to say this is lean. I never really thought this race was going anywhere in particular. We're now going to fill out the other lean states, of which there are none. Alright then, we are going to fill out the remaining tilt states, and we are going to start with Nevada. Nevada, based off of early voting, is not looking good for Democrats. It's not. They're underperforming everywhere. What? Okay, get rid of that. They're underperforming everywhere. And polling in Nevada, I get it, okay, guys? It did overestimate Republicans in 2018. It's happened, okay? I readily admit that. I'm not covering anything up. I fully readily admit that. But if we look at 2020, they were mostly on point. You might say, well, 2020 is not a midterm year. It doesn't matter if it's a midterm year. This shows that polling has gotten better for Nevada. They had Trump leading in like 1 or 2 polls in 2020, and the rest of the polls had Biden leading. So I think with that in mind, polling in Nevada is getting to be a little bit more favorable to Democrats overall. But just based off of the trends Nevada is showing in the early vote, this is just not looking good for them. It's really not. Like, they were counting on Nevada to be like the North Carolina for Republicans, like the one state that always comes close and never flips. But like, for real, I think it actually flips this time. Again, the only reason I put this as tilt and not lean is because I have a hard time believing it myself, okay? But I think it is probably going to happen, just based off of those numbers. I'm serious. Anyway, we're gonna move on. Okay. Pennsylvania. This is such an important race. This is such an important race. The only people who have it as a lean D flip right now is Sabato. He needs to change that rating, because after John Fetterman's debate performance, everything collapsed, guys. I mean, most polls after the debate are showing this to be looking really good. Insider Advantage, they are not a partisan pollster, all right? They had Oz trailing, then they had it tied, and now they have Oz leading by 3. They had Walker trailing by 3 in Georgia, and now they have it... Actually, I'm not sure now. Oh well. They have it like really close now in Georgia compared to where they had it before. It's looking much favorable for Walker, but that's a different story. So basically, these are not necessarily bad pollsters. I don't know much about Wick. From what I've heard, they're all right. Coefficient, they're decent. Big Data Poll, though, is an incredible pollster. From everything I hear about them, they're an incredible pollster. They got Trump right in 2016 and Biden right in 2020. I mean, they're an incredible pollster. So I think Oz wins by tilt margin. Fetterman is a weak candidate. I will say that. They're both not good candidates. I will say that. They're both candidates that have issues. Fetterman has his issues. Oz has his issues. They both struggle. Fetterman just has a stronger appeal to a base, and that's key, because he's going to have a whole bunch of people wanting to vote for him regardless of what happened to him during the debate. Regardless of any of that, they are going to vote for him still. So because of that, this is only a tilt race. I think Oz just barely wins it, but I think Oz does win it. I think that debate was decisive, and I think when we see more polls come out, I might even move this to lean if we see more polls come out and they consistently show Oz ahead, because polls in Pennsylvania, we know, aren't even the best. So, that is it for Pennsylvania. We will go to Arizona, which I believe is kind of a toss-up at this point. Everybody has it as either lean D, toss-up, and that's pretty fair. Mark Victor did drop out today, by the way. That's key, I think. Blake Masters really could benefit from that. Now, I will say this. When it comes to polling, Mark Kelly is doing horrible as an incumbent. He's only at like 47% in most of these polling aggregates. And that's just not good for him. I'm sorry, it's not. If we look back here, in 2020, not only was his polling lead higher, he was leading by 5, but not only was it higher, he was above 50% in most of these polls. Look at this. 50%, 54, 55, 52, 51, 53. I mean, look at that. Look at how many polls the guy eclipsed 50% in. And he's not doing that this time. Let me see the last time he led in a poll above 50%. Okay, this one right here. By Siena Research / New York Times, and they're a bad pollster. I don't put any weight into them. So if we go on, we see most of these polls right here, apart from the horrible Kurt Jetta, all show him largely below 50%. Only at the beginning of the campaign was he consistently above 50%, but it's tightened. And so I think anyone really has a shot at winning this, but I'm going to keep it at tilt Kelly, because Masters still has to lead a poll yet, and he's not led a poll. And this possibly wins without doing that, but he should be leading at least a couple of polls so that we know that it's within the realm of possibility, so that we know that all the undecideds won't be breaking for Mark Kelly, because that's key. But I think it's a toss-up, really. I think Masters really does have a shot at winning. This brings Republicans to 51 seats and Democrats to 48 seats. It all comes down to Georgia, doesn't it? Well, not really. Republicans already have a majority, and that's key. You know why? Because when Republicans already have a majority, it affects what happens during the runoff. That's right. I'm almost certain at this point there's going to be a runoff. I can feel it, alright? There's going to be a runoff, and it's going to hurt Democrats because of it. I get it, okay? I get runoffs, like people say, oh, runoffs always favor Democrats. Not necessarily. It really depends on the scenario. If we think about the fact that Republicans already have the Senate at this point, are Democrats going to feel enthused to turn out or not enthused to turn out? They're not going to be enthused to turn out. And you know why? Because last time, for example, when we looked at this, we saw that, in fact, we saw that Democrats turned out because they were excited about the stimulus money. They were excited because there was that final message, there was that yay, you guys all get free money message that the Democrats were pouring at the campaign during the final days before the runoff. And that got the Democrat turnout out there, man. I mean, it really did. I don't know who's going to finish first on election night. My gut feeling is probably that it's Warnock, just because he's the stronger candidate by far. Herschel Walker is kind of a bad candidate, but he does have some charisma when it just comes to his personality. Like on the debate stage, he had some charisma there, and he's not a total dumpster fire of a candidate, but he certainly is one of the weaker candidates. But in some ways, he's better than Gary Black, because Gary Black, for example, would not have gotten out the Republican base as much, because he's more of an unknown. So at least Walker has the name recognition and the excitement factor behind him. Most of these pollsters, University of Georgia, they have it Walker +1. I'm going to say Warnock probably wins prior, but it goes to a runoff, and Walker barely pulls it off. That's what I'm going to say. Walker barely does it. So anyway, that is my Senate election prediction. 52 seats for Republicans, 48 for Democrats. Republicans gain 2. Although Arizona is really toss-up, and Georgia is a toss-up too, to an extent, but I think Arizona is more of the toss-up at this point. Okay, that is my prediction for the Senate elections. Now we're going to move on to the governor's races. And I need to move way quicker, don't I? Okay, so this is the blank map. Here's the color palette. We will start by filling in all these safe Democrat states: Hawaii, California. Illinois, I'm going to keep as safe. I know there's the poll with J.B. Pritzker only leading by 9, but I don't think it's going to do that. Not Vermont, New Hampshire. I always forget about that. That actually looks like it. Well, I'm actually thinking Connecticut might be safe. Ned Lamont is a popular governor. And if we look down here, McLaughlin and Associates, they're a terrible pollster, so screw them. Quinnipiac, they're a bad pollster too, but they have Lamont plus like 15. What does Emerson have? Emerson has it Lamont plus like 10. That's all I really need to know to say, yeah. Stefanowski ran a bad campaign, and he's not going to get this below the margin of 10%. So we are going to stop there, and we are going to look at the safe red states. So all these typical states. Yes, Oklahoma's safe. I already explained about the whole horrible polling. It's safe, guys. And I'm going to put Texas as safe, actually. Greg Abbott has been doing better in some polling. UT Tyler, they've tended to be more favorable to O'Rourke. But we look at Emerson, they have it like R plus 8, R plus 9. Yeah, I think Abbott wins over enough undecideds to barely pull it above the 10% margin. I would say, based off of the Emerson poll, I think it's certainly possible he does that. So I will do it as safe, just so that I don't waste any more time, because this is already a very long video. Continue with Arkansas. Iowa is going to be an easy win for Kim Reynolds. And yes, Florida too is safe. Ron DeSantis has been surging as of late. Look at this. He's leading by 14 points. He's leading by 12, 11, 10, 10, 11. And apart from the horrible political matrix poll, we all know they're a terrible pollster, because they show results like this. Yeah, Christ is a bad candidate, okay, guys? He just is. Look at it. He's a terrible candidate. He literally told Republicans to vote for DeSantis and not for him just because of like all their hate or whatever. Like, that's not the way you win over voters. I don't care what side you're from, that's just not the way to do it. Okay. We're going to continue. Ohio, easy win for Mike DeWine. Vermont, New Hampshire, easy wins there respectively. And, oh yes, I forgot about Colorado. Colorado is going to be so easy for Jared Polis. So easy. Okay, we're going to start off with the likely states for Democrats. I'm looking for them, looking. It's going to be Minnesota for sure. Minnesota is so impossible to flip. It's just impossible. I have trouble seeing it even being lean. I think 538 is more accurate here than Real Clear Politics, honestly. I think it's probably going to be like D plus 5 to 6. Probably D plus like 6 or 7, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm sorry. I know Trafalgar had Scott Jensen leading, I get it, but Trafalgar is weird sometimes, so we're going to ignore that. It's just not going to happen. Not Michigan, not Wisconsin, not Pennsylvania. I know you're thinking Pennsylvania, but nope, not Pennsylvania. We'll talk about Rhode Island first, and then we'll go to New York. Rhode Island is an interesting case because their governor is pretty unpopular. Not as unpopular as he used to be, but still pretty unpopular. Suffolk University, they tend to be Democratic-leaning. They have only a 10-point race with 800 likely voters. I think Callis is gaining momentum. She's got more name recognition now. From what I've heard, she absolutely destroyed McKee in the debate, so I will say that. But in general, he's just not a popular guy, and this race should be closer than anticipated. But still, probably an easy win of around 7 to 10%. Possibly below that, but I'm not going to count on that. Well, we're now going to look at New York. And yes, New York is a likely state. I know you think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. It's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. Early vote is not looking good for Hochul. It's really not. New York City turnout's bad. Emerson College, they have this race a 8 to 9 point win for Hochul. That's actually new, by the way. I didn't notice that before. Trafalgar has it tied. I don't believe Trafalgar in this case. I believe more like Emerson, which is like D plus 8. D plus like 6 to 8, I would say. Or 7 to 9. D plus 7 to 9. We'll say that. I don't think Hochul wins by any less than 7%. But it is going to be a closer race simply because Hochul is taking it for granted and not doing anything about anything and acting like she just doesn't care, which is an issue. Okay. We are going to look at likely Republican states. Alaska is one. That is because, of course, of the ranked choice voting system. Of course, the system is going to be an issue for Mike Dunleavy, but I still see him winning by like anywhere from 5 to 10% overall. So, yep. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Georgia, likely for sure. This state is like no debate anymore. It's not. It's even Siena Research has Kemp up by 5, and that's all you need to know because they're a bad pollster. They're a bad pollster. Kemp plus 8 in the aggregate. Kemp plus 6. I mean, it's really not rocket science, guys. This race is like closely watched, but it's really not going to be that close. Stacey Abrams is not running a good campaign. She doesn't have what she used to have. Like, rematches never go well in general unless it's a different environment. And in this case it is, which means Abrams is going to do worse. Stefanowski, it's just like Stefanowski, really. It's the same thing, just doesn't have the same momentum, so definitely likely there. Maine, you know what? No, I'm not gonna call it that. And that looks to be it. Okay, we will move to lean states now. These will include the states of Arizona. Arizona, Katie Hobbs could have won this race if she had simply not. Oh my gosh. She's up 11 points in this poll. What the heck, man? What the heck? And she's only tied in Siena Research New York Times polls. Kari Lake is without a doubt winning this thing. Katie Hobbs could have easily won this race, but she didn't because I guess she just wanted to get out of politics and said, okay, so I'm going to run for governor, guys. But you know what? Actually, I'm actually going to lose the race on purpose because I hate being a politician these days. It's the worst job ever, and I wish I never was one to begin with. I think I'll just go home and take a nice long nap and maybe have a beer. Anyways, it's just going bad for her. I think she really just wanted to lose to begin with. She's doing so bad. Okay. We're going to look at, I believe we're going to look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, Tony Evers is going down, and we all know it. Polling is bad in Wisconsin, but even they have Michaels up in a few of these polls. Data for Progress has Michaels up. I think it's going to be like a couple of points win for Tim Michaels. Not really much to say there. He's exciting to the Trump base. He's got the momentum factor behind him. Just in general, he's just got these polls looking to be in his favor. Even like CNN, which is a bad pollster, favors Democrats. They even have it only being a 2-point race now. So I don't see Tony Evers pulling out a win at this point. Okay, we're going to look at the now lean states, which include the state of New Mexico, where Mark Ronchetti is doing a great job, but it's simply not enough. I'm sorry, Mark. It's not enough for you, boy. Emerson has this being like a 2-point race. I would actually agree with that. I think Grisham is not popular enough to do a really good job in this race. But I would say, regardless of that, Trafalgar was a little bit too hasty here, calling it for Ronchetti. I think Ronchetti still has a shot, but I really don't think he's going to win at this point. He's done about the best he can, but I just don't see it happening. Anyways, so we are going to look at the state of Michigan. Mark my words, guys, there's going to be a lot of turnout to get rid of Gretchen Whitmer. A lot of turnout. Conservatives hate her guts so much, it's going to happen, okay? And it's going to be even greater than this insider, not greater than the Insider Advantage poll, but even more than, Signal is showing. Signal is showing a 6-point race, no, it's going to be much more than that. I would say Whitmer wins by anywhere from 2 to 5. 2 to 5. She could maybe win by over 5, but I don't see it happening. Mark my words, there is going to be a lot of turnout to get rid of this woman. It's not going to succeed, but it's going to be close. Those lockdowns left a lot of people mad, and I think they're going to get out there and try and kick her out. I truly believe that. Go ahead and call me crazy if you want. Pennsylvania, this race could have been a flip if they had only funded Doug Mastriano, but they didn't. Big Data Poll has this as a likely race, but I believe even they are a little bit off. I think they're truly underestimating the Trump base getting out. Right now, I'd say it's a lean. I believe it's 3 to 5% win for Josh Shapiro overall. Shapiro clearly has the edge. He's a statewide elected official. He's got the name recognition. Mastriano simply doesn't have the resources because nobody decided to help him, which is really dumb. But whatever. Do what you want. You do you. Anyway. Okay. Maine. Paul LePage often overperforms polls, which is why I'm not going to say this is a total loss for him yet, but I'm pretty sure it is. There's not been a lot of polling in this race, so I can't really say. But I think Janet Mills, Paul LePage was a hated governor, and I just don't see him being able to win a third non-consecutive term in office. It's just not going to happen. And now we will look at the final 3 states. We will start with Kansas. I still believe Derek Schmidt's going to win there by about a point, but if Laura Kelly wins, I won't be surprised. There are governors who are literal juggernauts who are able to win in red states despite the fact they're of the opposite party. I'm not sure how good of a campaign Schmidt's been running, but I think overall he's a good enough candidate, statewide elected, etc., to the point where he can beat Kelly. Although it is going to be extremely, extremely close. We need more polling from the race also. Nobody's been polling it. Like, what's wrong with you? Just pull the race, people. Anyway. Okay. That leaves us with Nevada and Oregon, and they will be our tilt states. That's right. Nevada will be our first tilt state, and it is going to go red, I believe. Suffolk University has it as a tie. Again, polling in Nevada, getting better. It's not the worst that it used to be. I think it still is a little bit too friendly to Republicans, but in 2020, like I said, they were mostly pretty oversampling of Democrats. So, as a whole, I would say Lombardo is barely favored to flip this race by a slightly higher tilt margin than Adam Laxalt is to flip the Senate race. Lombardo is the sheriff of Clark County, for crying out loud. I mean, the guy clearly has his name recognition out there. And Sisolak isn't very popular anyway, so it's really not too much of an issue. Plus the early voting. Do I need to keep talking about this? The early voting says it all. So, final race we will be looking at is the state of Oregon. And oh boy, I know this is crazy, but I'm actually going to put it as Tiltar. The only polls that are really showing this race being in the bag for Kotek is Civics, which again, they oversampled Democrats anyway. They have Kotek plus 8, like what? Every other poll, including Emerson, by the way, and Data for Progress, all have this as being a Drazen lead. And then GBAO, I'm not even sure what they are, but they conducted this poll for Kotek's campaign, and I'm sorry, I can't trust that. So overall, most of these polls seem to be fairly accurate. Trafalgar had it as like a 2-point lead. That's reasonable. I agree with them in this case. Data for Progress, 1-point lead. In general, I think Drazen has a little bit of momentum to the point where she can actually win this race pretty easily. Well, not easily because it's a tilt margin, but anyway, like, basically you get what I'm saying. She has the momentum. She's made a point of the state being under Democratic rule for so many years. It's just in general, she has that change factor that is important for winning in a state like Oregon. And again, Betsy Johnson splitting the votes. So I'm going to have to say it, but this state is going to be tilt R. Not Leonr like these polls are suggesting, but Tilt R. Because likely there is some overestimating of Johnson's support, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So anyway, that is my prediction for the 2022 gubernatorial races. Dear gosh, this was a long video. Please subscribe, do all that crap, and I will see you next time. Also, check out my other videos, and stay tuned for my upcoming U.S. House election night and my U.S. Senate and Governor's election night. See you later. Bye.